Welcome. This is a Blackboard discussion about comparative advantage and the production possibilities model. Now, we're going to get right into this. Imagine these three machines over here can produce two things, either cookies over here or pretzels over here. C, cookies, P, pretzels. So machine A can make either cookies or pretzels, machine B can make either cookies or pretzels, and machine C can make either cookies and pretzels. Imagine there's a company, we'll call this company X, and it's going to make either cookies and pretzels, and right now it's making all cookies. So it's making 12,000 cookies. Boom, these machines are pumping away and making the cookies. Here they come spitting out of these little holes here. All these cookies are coming out, and they're making 12,000. Well, it turns out there's a manager. We'll put the manager here, and he's looking over here at these machines, and he's thinking, what should I do? And he's been to Harvard MBA school, and he's got a few pieces of paper on his desk, and the piece of paper say, hey, you could sell some pretzels for a pretty good price. Why don't you make some pretzels? So he's got to decide what to do. He looks at his machines, and he's got to turn one of them off and make pretzels instead of cookies. And when he looks at these machines, he says, well, I think some of them have a comparative advantage in making pretzels over others. And this is what this means. If he turns machine A off from making cookies and makes pretzels, he can make 3,000 more pretzels from 0, and he loses from 12,000 to 11,000, 1,000 cookies. He goes from 12,000 to 11,000, and over here, 3,000 pretzels. You end up with this red dot here. So he's got machine A making pretzels now. I think, what's a pretzel look like? Something like this. I don't know. Well, it's a pretzel. And machine A is making pretzels now. And now he's going to get a report from somebody, and it says, make more pretzels. They're hot. And so he says, okay, what do I do? What do I do? And he looks at machine B and C. They're still making cookies. They're making 11,000 cookies. He figures out which one has a comparative advantage in making pretzels. And it turns out it's machine B. Turns it off of cookies and onto pretzels. It goes from 3,000 to 6,000 now, the company. But they lose these cookies. They lose cookie production from 11,000 to 8,000. So this number goes down from 11 to 8,000 over here. And we end up with this yellow dot. So this company is now making 8,000 cookies and 6,000 pretzels. What does he mean by comparative advantage? What's going on? What he means is that this machine A loses 1,000 cookies. The opportunity cost for machine A of increasing production to 3,000 pretzels is the 1,000 cookies he loses. Maybe you saw my other production possibilities discussion about increasing opportunity costs. That's the same thing going on. You lose 1,000 cookies. How about machine B? Well, machine B, you would lose 3,000 cookies. Now, the increase in the opportunity costs is you're losing more cookies when you turn machine B on to make pretzels than A. A has a comparative advantage over machine B. How about machine C? Well, machine C is great for making cookies. It's really good for making cookies. So when you turn this off and turn it back on and make pretzels with it, you get your 3,000 pretzels. They're all equally good at making pretzels. It's just machine C has a really high opportunity cost. You lose 8,000 cookies. So this guy better be convinced that they really want pretzels before he turns machine C off, because look what they're going to lose. 8,000 cookies. So that's the opportunity cost of 8,000. You gain the extra 3,000, but you lose quite a bit. Now, this has all got to do with comparative advantage. Comparative advantage says machine A has a comparative advantage in making pretzels over machine B. Machine B has a comparative advantage of making pretzels over machine C, linked to this whole cookie thing. Now, if this guy didn't get his MBA and he was just kind of guessing, and he said, you know what, if we're going to increase pretzels, let's just make machine C do it first, you would end up losing 8,000 pretzels. You'd go all the way down to 4,000 here. You'd get your 3,000 pretzels. You'd lose 8,000 cookies. Look what would happen. Instead of going up here like this, you'd end up down here like this. And then if you turned machine B over, in other words, if you did the exact opposite, you'd end up with a curve like this. Here, let me change the color on you for that one. You end up with a curve way down here like this, the exact opposite of this production possibilities curve. And if you were looking down from above and you said, I want this world to solve the problem of unlimited wants and limited resources, we need to make as much as we possibly can with our limited resources, you'd want to fire this guy if he made that decision. Why? Because look at your options down here. You're not making as many cookies and pretzels. You're not following what we call the rule of comparative advantage. Use the resource, which is resource A, first. Why? Because it has a comparative advantage of making pretzels over B. What about the next one? You'd use B instead of C. That's the rule, we call it, of comparative advantage. Here's the deal. Not all resources are perfectly adaptable to alternative uses. That's the very textbooky kind of definition of this. Machine A is good at making pretzels, machine B is good at making pretzels, and machine C is good at making pretzels, but they all have different opportunity costs. They're not perfectly adaptable. In other words, machine B, when you start to make pretzels, you lose more cookies than machine A. I think I've said that 100 times. That's enough. The point is, that's production possibilities model and comparative advantage. I'm done. Why don't you go have a cookie or a pretzel? See you later. Bye.